In Iceland, they have one of the most open cultures when it comes to sexual relationships. They are also open to nudism, which can be shocking for people from other countries and cultures. On the other hand, it can also be shocking for Icelanders that people from other nationalities feel so much modesty about being naked or engaging in casual relationships. For Icelanders, it is normal to openly discuss sexuality. In Icelandic culture, relationships and nudism are seen as natural, and people do not feel ashamed to express them. Icelandic women have a significant influence within Icelandic society and in their households. They tend to be assertive, take initiative, and are not dependent on men. Today, Iceland is known as a destination to explore its stunning and unusual landscapes, volcanoes, glaciers, horses, puffins, sheep, and overall nature, which Icelanders greatly appreciate. It is undoubtedly one of the most beautiful and striking countries. An example of Iceland's amazing nature is Skogafoss waterfall, surrounded by vibrant green grass in the summer, but covered in snow during the winter. It has a width of 82 feet and a drop of 197 feet. Legend has it that the area's first Viking buried treasure in the cave beneath the waterfall. But apart from nature, in the past there was also discussions about so-called dirty weekends. A famous Icelandic airline contributed to spreading this message of sexual freedom with slogans such as, "Looking for a daring weekend in Iceland? A wild night in Reykjavik," and "Miss Iceland awaits you." Icelanders probably see this with humor and don't take it too seriously. For them, a night of fun with a man or a woman is completely normal. A game involving a man or woman chasing someone of the opposite sex is something that perhaps only an Icelander could have imagined. The airline I mentioned even had games on their website called Halldór Gets Lucky at the Blue Lagoon and Hildur Gets Lucky at the Blue Lagoon. Halldór is a masculine name, while Hildur is feminine. As you can see, they are talking about fun for both sexes. In these virtual games, characters chased their opposite sex around the Blue Lagoon, earning points if they achieved certain goals. The Blue Lagoon is one of Iceland's most famous sites and one of the most memorable places to visit in the country. It is a spa with an artificial lagoon that stays warm throughout the year. You can relax and enjoy a soothing soak in the warm water while it is cold outside. Both Icelandic men and women are very liberal. There is no need to go on a first, second, or third date before getting intimate. Sometimes it is seen as acceptable to engage in this activity first to determine if there is chemistry in the relationship. Other times, after the first date, the woman might be the one to invite the man to her home or apartment. In Iceland, women take a lot of initiative. It is common to see a woman leading a family business while her husband plays a secondary role. In work teams, women may hold similar status or be the ones with more responsibility. This contrasts with many countries worldwide, where it is expected that men take the initiative, and it is unusual to see women in leadership roles. In the United States, Mexico, and other European and Asian countries, there are certain unwritten rules about dating and sexual relationships. Generally, several dates are expected before entering a relationship, with 3 sometimes being the magic number. If viewing sexual relations as an important aspect of a couple, it could make sense to get straight to the point and then get to know each other on dates if there is a mutual interest. This is how it works for some Icelandic men and women. It is rare for a romantic relationship to be recognized first and then consummated in the carnal act. In summary, in Iceland, a sexual connection usually comes first, followed by dating. This is generally the case, though not always. It is viewed positively, without a negative outlook on it. Cultural beliefs and customs have historical explanations, and the same is true for the sexual freedom in Iceland and other Nordic countries. In Icelandic history, gender equality and openness in sexuality can be traced back to its first settlers. The first permanent settler in Iceland was the Viking Ingolf Arnarson and his wife, Hadalveig Frodadóttir, who established themselves in Reykjavik in 874. For centuries since the arrival of the Vikings in Iceland, women stayed at home taking care of children, hunting, building, and farming. However, there were also female warriors who could rise to leadership positions. Viking culture had an open attitude towards sexuality. Premarital relationships were common. A woman could even test whether her potential future husband could satisfy her. If the man did not measure up, she could decide not to marry him. Women could marry from the age of 15, often with much older men. Families could arrange marriages, but the women had the final say. Once married, Viking women had many rights, such as the ability to divorce or inherit land. Other reasons for divorce included wearing clothing of the opposite sex, being homosexual, or refusing to have relations for a period. At the beginning of the Viking era, extramarital relations were accepted, but later they became a crime. If a man or woman was caught in an affair, they could be killed along with their lovers. In the Icelandic sagas which describe the settlement of Iceland during the 10th and 11th centuries, sexual relations are frequent. Much later in 1707, smallpox affected a large part of Iceland's population, killing about 12,000 Icelanders, which was equivalent to a quarter of the population at the time. In 1707, Iceland was part of the Kingdom of Denmark, whose king decided it should be law that every Icelandic woman should have 6 children, whether married or not. In a time of crisis, this was not seen as unfair, violent, or shameful, but as necessary for the population's survival. This history of Iceland and other cultural influences mean that dating before carnal relations and idealized romantic love are not as common in Iceland as in other countries. There are no courtship dances. Intentions are much more direct. Viking women could have premarital relationships to choose their husband. Today, it is similar. People can have relations first to decide whether to deepen a personal relationship. In fact, dating without a connection can be very uncomfortable for Icelanders. The preferred order is to meet a man or woman at a party, bar, or app, go to your place or theirs, have the relationship, and then decide whether or not to continue seeing them. Signs of Icelandic women's equality and independence can be seen in universities or parliament. In universities, there are about 2 women for every male student. In parliament, about 50% are women. Regarding beliefs, in Iceland, it is not believed that only men always want to have sexual relations. It is accepted and seen as normal that women want them too, and they also know how to assertively ask for what they want. Because of this and other things I've told you, men from other countries may feel intimidated by the initiative and assertiveness of Icelandic women, who are not afraid to ask for what they want, take the initiative, and do not feel embarrassed by their desires. Therefore, shaming women for expressing sexual intentions does not exist in Iceland. In fact, it is quite the opposite. It is believed that a woman who speaks her mind is strong, capable, and comfortable with who she is. So a woman who has had many partners is not insulted. Instead, it is seen as normal. Icelanders do not idealize love and do not practice romantic love as much. However, this does not mean that people in Iceland lack emotions, but rather that these emotions come after the carnal act. This priority on relationships, and not so much on love and infatuation, may also stem from adaptation to the environment and prioritizing survival. Conditions in Iceland can be harsh. From 879 to 1170, there was a relatively warm phase that facilitated settlement, but a cooling period began at the end of the 12th century, with some warm peaks. The coldest months are December, January, and February, with temperatures dropping to 27 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. In July and August, the warmest months, temperatures can reach 59 degrees Fahrenheit. This winter cold is not as extreme as in other countries, where temperatures can easily drop below -14 degrees Fahrenheit. However, there can be violent storms with strong winds and heavy snowfall. In 934, shortly after the first settlements, Iceland experienced one of the largest volcanic eruptions in its history. the Elja volcano, which spewed lava and gases that spread across Europe and reached China. The Vikings came from places without volcanoes, so they did not know what was happening, although it is unclear whether they attributed it to natural phenomena or gave it a mythological explanation. Currently, it is estimated that there are about 60,000 married couples in Iceland, with a population of 372,000 people. Marriage in this country may also strike you as unusual. In other countries, couples meet during several dates and may have relations before or after marriage. After getting married, they have children. But this is not common for Icelanders. Typically, they first have relations, later go on dates or socialize, then live together and have children if they decide to. After several years, they may start talking about getting married and, if desired, do so. To give you an idea of how widespread this way of relating is, about 70% of children in Iceland are born to unmarried parents. Broken families or completely estranged parents are not as common in Iceland. If you're separated or divorced, it is normal to eat, see, or get along with your ex-partner and their current partner. There is therefore no clear concept of a completely terminated relationship. Another point I want to explain that may also present a cultural shock to you is nudity in Iceland. Bathing naked is not seen as a sexual experience. You can do it in safe hot springs without people around. Even if an Icelander happens to pass by, they're unlikely to see it as a scandal. It is a way to connect with nature and accept human nature. Moreover, bathing naked is practical when traveling by car, bike, or van without having to carry wet clothes. Some hot springs you will find throughout the country have a perfect temperature for bathing, but certain springs are too hot, so make sure of the temperature before entering completely. Also, Iceland is a geologically young country and is constantly forming. The land around natural pools can be unstable and have boiling water beneath the surface. Additionally, popular bathing spots like Landmannalugar or Húsavíkur may be contaminated with bacteria and should be avoided by pregnant women, children, or people with weakened immune systems. Obviously, if you go to Iceland, don't take the locals' relaxed attitude towards nudity to the extreme. Don't walk around downtown Reykjavik naked, or in geothermal spas if there are people around. While it is legal as long as you don't offend anyone, swimwear is recognized in public pools, although only the bottom part. Women are not legally required to wear the top part of a bikini, nor are men required to wear a shirt. However, the places where you might see more nudity are in the showers or spas of public pools. But keep this in mind, it is an unwritten rule not to look at private parts if curiosity calls. And now that you know more about Icelandic women and cultural customs for both sexes, you might want to know more about how people meet in this country. Because Iceland's population is relatively low, there is a system to determine if two people interested in having children or partnering have similar ancestry. This helps prevent future children from having problems due to genetic diseases. Sitting in a restaurant or cafe is not common. Iceland is a small country, and doing this carries a high risk of being seen by someone you know. It is more likely to go to a place far from the city, where it is unlikely to run into someone familiar. If they decide to meet and get to know each other, it is common to drink to overcome shyness and go home, although it doesn't have to end in a relationship. People usually meet on apps or social networks, chat virtually, and then meet in person. They also meet in bars, work, gyms, or universities. Another point is that there are no cultural rules about men having to ask women if they want to go to their homes. As I've already explained, women take the initiative and usually ask. The same goes for paying at the bar. Women also pay their share, or may decide to pay the entire bill. Iceland is one of the best places in the world to be a woman. Nearly 90% of women are employed, in addition to what I have already explained about the majority of women in universities. This is also reflected in politics. Vigdis Finnbogadóttir is considered the first woman to be elected president of a democratically governed country, serving as president of Iceland from 1980 to 1996. Gender equality that comes from the Viking era is also present in laws today. In 1850, Iceland became the first country in the world to grant inheritance rights to women, equalizing them with men. Since 2021, couples who have children have paid leave from work for 12 months. Each parent can take 6 months off, with 80% of their income if they had a full-time job. If you go to Iceland and want to know more about the country, visit other videos we have on the channel about this amazing country. Also, keep some things in mind. Yes, the country has a positive view of sexuality and nudity, but Icelanders don't want their country to be seen as a place to go for sexual fun. In fact, doing this is not very smart, starting with the fact that if you have limited time, it is advisable to travel around the country to see its natural wonders. Icelanders, both women and men, tend to be reserved in public and do not talk to strangers. It is true that Icelandic women are decisive, take initiative, and are assertive. But that doesn't mean that just anyone who comes to the country will have dozens of them pursuing them, or that it will be very easy to go to their apartments. Unless you are highly attractive, it is unlikely that you will go to a bar, invite a girl, and win her over. In fact, talking to strangers is considered strange and uncomfortable, except for late at night when alcohol has taken effect. In this case, talking to strangers is more tolerated, but respect is expected when interacting. However, if you spend enough time in Iceland and immerse yourself in local customs, working with Icelanders and interacting with them is different. In this way, you will get to know women, their independence, determination, and their fearlessness in talking about sexuality or what they want. Visit this video about Iceland to learn why it is one of the most unique countries on the planet. Leave a comment on whether you find this view of personal relationships more positive, or if you prefer that of your own country. Share with your family and friends if you enjoyed it, and subscribe with the bell icon to see more videos like this.